My name is Camila, and I am 28. My parents paid for my brother's tuition without blinking, $180,000 for medical school. But when it came to me, they smiled like they were giving wisdom and said the words that still echo in my bones. Girls don't need degrees. Just find a husband. I remember exactly where I was standing when they said it. Barefoot on the cold kitchen tiles, acceptance letter trembling in my hands. The future I had imagined folding in on itself like paper set on fire. They didn't say it with cruelty. That was the worst part. They said it casually, like it was obvious, like gravity. My brother sat at the table scrolling on his phone. Already celebrated, already funded, already certain. I was invisible. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I nodded, went to my room, and cried silently into a pillow so no one would accuse me of being dramatic. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise and started working. That's how my rebellion began, not with shouting, but with exhaustion. I worked 3 jobs, sometimes back-to-back shifts that blurred days into nights. I waited tables until my feet burned, tutored high school kids who reminded me of who I used to be, and cleaned offices after midnight when the city felt empty. Every dollar went into tuition, books, rent. I learned how hunger sharpens focus, and how loneliness can be quieter than any insult. While my brother wore a white coat paid for by my parents, I wore thrift store scrubs and a smile that fooled no one. When my parents bragged to relatives about his progress, they'd turn to me and ask if I'd met anyone nice yet, as if love were a replacement for ambition, as if a ring could do the work of a degree. I stopped correcting them. I stopped asking for approval. I poured everything into my studies and told myself that success didn't need witnesses. There were nights I almost quit, nights when my hands shook from caffeine and fatigue, when I questioned whether proving them wrong was worth destroying myself. But then I'd remember that sentence, "You don't need degrees, just find a husband," and something in me would harden. I wasn't studying to impress them anymore. I was studying to survive them. Years passed like that. I missed birthdays, holidays, entire chunks of life. My brother advanced smoothly, supported, praised, cushioned from failure. I advanced painfully, one exam at a time, one bill at a time. And when graduation day finally came, I sat in my cap and gown alone, phone buzzing with overdue rent notifications instead of congratulations. But when my name was called, I stood taller than I ever had in my life. I graduated summa cum laude. No applause from my parents. No proud tears. Just me, breathing, realizing I had done something no one believed I could. Life didn't magically become easy after that. Success never does. But it became mine. I built a career piece by piece, earned respect the hard way, learned to trust my own judgment instead of waiting for permission. I stopped telling my parents details about my life, because every conversation somehow turned back to my brother, his residency, his engagement, his bright future. I was proud of him, truly, but I was tired of being the footnote. Then came the invitation. My brother's engagement party. Elegant venue. Extended family. A celebration of everything my parents had invested in and believed in. I hesitated before going. Part of me wanted to stay home, to avoid the comparisons, the subtle pity, the old wounds. But another part of me, stronger now, said I had nothing to hide. That night, I wore a simple dress and confidence I had earned the hard way. My parents beamed as guests arrived. And then, in the middle of the room, glass raised high, my father cleared his throat. The chatter faded. He smiled proudly and said words that sliced clean through the air. "We're so proud to introduce our successful child." He gestured toward my brother, glowing beside his fiancée. Applause erupted. My chest tightened, not from jealousy, but from the familiarity of being erased. What my father didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that life has a strange sense of timing. That truth doesn't always arrive gently. And that the story they thought they were celebrating was about to collide with a reality they never imagined. The applause hadn't even died down when my brother's fiancée turned toward me. At first, her smile was polite, distant, the kind you give strangers at family events. Then her eyes narrowed just slightly. Confusion flickered. Recognition followed. I saw it land on her face like a dropped glass shattering in slow motion. Her grip tightened around her champagne flute, and she whispered my name under her breath, not as a question but as a memory. That was the moment I knew the past had finally caught up with us. Years earlier, during one of my longest hospital rotations, she had been my patient. Not briefly, not casually. She had come in terrified, her heart condition misdiagnosed elsewhere, her life hanging in a balance no one else had caught in time. I remembered her chart, her sleepless nights, the way she tried to joke through fear. I remembered sitting by her bed after a double shift, because no one else had time, explaining procedures in plain language, holding her hand when the monitors screamed. I remembered saving her life. She remembered it too. She excused herself from my brother's side, walked straight toward me, and before I could speak, she hugged me tightly, shaking. "You," she said, voice breaking, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "You're the doctor who saved me." Conversations around us faltered. A few heads turned. My parents froze mid-smile. My father laughed awkwardly, trying to regain control. "Ah, that's sweet," he said. "Our son is the doctor in the family." The words hung there, wrong, misplaced, fragile. She pulled back from me and looked directly at him, eyes sharp now, unwavering. "No," she said clearly, "Camilla is. She was my doctor. TF saved my life when no one else would listen." Silence crashed down harder than any applause before it. My brother stared between us, color draining from his face. "That's not possible," he said. I haven't even finished." He stopped, realization spreading like ink in water. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. My father's glass lowered slowly, his hand trembling. I didn't feel triumph. I felt calm. A deep, steady calm that only comes when truth finally steps into the light. I spoke then, not loudly, not angrily. "Yes," I said. "I'm a doctor. I worked 3 jobs. I paid my own way. I graduated summa cum laude." I looked at my parents as I said the next part, letting every word land. "Because when I asked for support, you told me girls don't need degrees, just husbands." My mother's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. My father looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. Around us, relatives shifted uncomfortably. Whispers began. The story they had all been told, the neat, proud version, was unraveling thread by thread. My brother's fiancé took his hand, but she didn't look at him. She looked at me. "I owe her my life," she said to everyone. "I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for Camilla." There was no accusation in her voice. Just fact, just reality. That night didn't end with shouting or dramatic exits. It ended quietly, which somehow made it heavier. People left early. Conversations stayed hushed. My parents didn't come to say goodbye. I walked out alone under the soft glow of streetlights, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the weeks that followed, messages came. Some apologetic, some defensive. My father tried to explain himself, how he thought he was doing what was best, how times were different, how he never imagined I'd actually do it. I listened, but I didn't rush to forgive. Not out of spite, but because forgiveness without accountability is just another form of silence. My brother called too. He wasn't angry. He was confused, hurt. For the first time, he saw the imbalance clearly. We talked, not as rivals, not as golden child and forgotten one, but as 2 people shaped very differently by the same household. It wasn't instant healing, but it was honest. As for me, I went back to my life, to my patience, to mornings that mattered and nights that felt earned. I stopped carrying the weight of needing my parents to validate me. I had already validated myself, with every exam passed, every life saved, every boundary drawn. Sometimes I think about that younger version of me, standing barefoot on cold tiles, holding an acceptance letter while being told to shrink her dreams. I wish I could tell her this. They don't get to define your worth. Not your parents. Not tradition. Not fear dressed up as advice. At my brother's engagement party, my dad tried to introduce his successful child. He just didn't know that success doesn't always wear the spotlight. It often builds quietly in the dark until one day it speaks for itself.